The dawn after the dragon queen's ashes, scattered to the winds, broke pale and frigid over the ruin of King's Landing, as though winter itself had finally answered the city's centuries-long defiance. From a balcony half-collapsed by dragon fire, Tyrion Lannister studied the horizon where flecks of soot floated like dying snowflakes. His stump of a heart pulsed with a grief too serrated for tears. Daenerys, Jaime, even Cersei, the siblings who had shaped his life as surely as any smith-shaped steel, were gone. In the echoing gulf their absence left only a hollow yearning stirred, vengeance, precise and bottomless, not the hot, rash fury of the youth he once was, but a cold and intricate hunger that matched the morning's chill. He would requite every lost heartbeat, somehow. On those who had birthed this charnel dawn. But whom to blame? Jon Snow, the great houses who cheered until the flames licked their own doorsteps, or the small folk who prayed to every god yet mustered no revolt? Tyrion's thoughts spun like a coin on edge, refusing to fall. Down in the courtyard, unsullied stone columns cast long skeletal shadows. Beyond them stretched miles of charred streets, littered with doors blackened and flayed by heat. Doors no one would ever open again. A city of graves. He turned away. Somewhere in the holdfast cellars lay a cluster of dusty books, saved by chance from the inferno. Histories, diaries, and most curious of all, an unsigned vellum codex of Citadel copies concerning the long night. While Aegon's city smoldered, Tyrion spent the next days below ground like a mole, poring over ink long faded, seeking distraction. But the text's final chapter caught and held him. It spoke of pacts broken, of the other's cold treaties, of an ancient promise voided by the cruelty of kings. There, in cramped Maester Keith's scholarly hand, hinted a claim as fantastical as the dragons he had seen born from stone. That the White Walkers once respected envoys, respected words. Envoys, words. Two tools Tyrion still possessed when wealth, titles, kin, and armies had failed him. A spark struck dry tinder. Might the cold gods of the far north listen to a bargain no southerner had dared propose? And if they would listen, what price might they demand for unleashing their winter upon those Tyrion named? Winter, after all, had no interest in equity or mercy. It merely came. He lingered on that dangerous precipice for a full night, the manuscript open before him, a single tallow candle crooking a gold claw at the maps. The flame hissed each time a stray wind slipped through the cracked ceiling above, an omen that chilled more than the air. Even so, the notion hardened into certainty. He closed the codex and ran one palm across its vellum with the care of a lover's farewell. Then he rose, spine aching, and began to plan. The new, uneasy council, propped up by Jon Snow's reluctant rule in the Red Keep, barely noticed Tyrion's departure. They had bigger worries: feeding survivors, burying the dead, pacifying the Dothraki, who still prowled the Reach restless for blood. Tyrion left a note no one would read for weeks, instructing the scribes to add his name to the endless tally of casualties. By the time a raven finally winged north with word of his disappearance, he would be deep beyond the wall, far past any rescue or recall. Bronn of the Blackwater found him first, 2 days out of the city, where the King's Road's frost-spattered ruts converged on an inn that still smoked from some Longago pillage. Bronn lounged by the hearth with a flagon. "Headed someplace bleak, I see," he said, flicking ash into the fire. "The rumors claim you're dead. Thought I'd confirm before I spent the Lannister gold you still owe me." Tyrion lifted a brow. "If rumor gives you my ghost, why not believe it and enjoy your earnings in peace?" Bronn gestured at the northward realm outside. "Because ghosts don't buy drinks, and dead men rarely outrun trouble. Where you're going, I smell trouble thicker than pig shit. I go to parley, Tyrion said, voice mild as snow settling on stone. Parley with whom? With those who command the winter. Bronn swallowed. You're cracked. The Night King's gone, and whatever's left up there isn't for talking. You want a sellersort's advice. Turn round. Yet something in Tyrion's bleak composure pricked Bronn's curiosity. And if I said I'd accompany you, so long as the coin's princely? It's a journey for one, Tyrion replied too quietly, and no prince is left to pay your price. Bronn stared a moment, then shrugged, resigned to pragmatism. I'll drink to your memory then, and if winter follows your heels, I'll know the talks went poorly. He tipped the flagon. Amber foam hissed on the coals between them. Tyrion bowed a final farewell and stepped into the night. Weeks unrolled like gray ribbon. Tyrion traveled by wagon when he could beg a seat, on mule when he must, and often on foot, his shorter strides forced to match travelers fleeing northward famine. Just as he ventured toward it, he wore a plain wool cloak, the color of wet ashes, and kept his identity hidden. The few who guessed at it muttered prayers and hurried on, as though death trailed behind him like smoke. At Winterfell, he lingered only long enough to restock provisions. Arya Stark was gone west. Sansa ruled the North's new kingdom from chambers painted with Stark banners, her calm authority brittle as ice over deep water. She met Tyrion in the Godswood while pale sunlight slanted between skeletal weirwood branches. I'll not stop you, she said when he told her nothing yet revealed everything. I owe you that much, but the snows beyond the wall hide worse than legend. Tyrion's laugh turned to mist in the air. Legend is all the realm has ever obeyed. Dragons were legend, and peace is a legend men lie themselves to sleep with. I walk north to barter one legend for another. New. She studied him, red leaves kissing strands of sunlight in her hair. If you find what you seek, will the living survive the cost? That choice rests with the living, he answered, and could not muster shame. Sansa pressed a leather-bound journal into his hands. Record what you learn, she said, voice softening. In case? Well, in case. She hesitated, then brushed her lips across his scarred cheek, a benediction of sorts. Goodbye, Tyrion. He slipped into the gathering dusk. No, gas. Beyond the wall, the world reverted to first principles, snow, silence, and the patient endurance of old things. Ghosts of once burning villages crouched beneath drifts. Gaps between sentinel pines became corridors of wind that screamed like children abandoned. Tyrion's beard crusted white. The very air felt thinner, as though each breath risked shattering like glass in his lungs. He tracked rumors as hunters track prints. Wildlings spoke of glittering shapes glimpsed on moonlit ridges, of herds of elk found frozen mid-stride, eyes rimmed with blue. They spoke, too, of an ice mark, an elevated plateau where the others gathered in council, a place no mortal foot had stepped without leaving it behind at the price of life. That last bit was discouraging. Yet Tyrion remembered Keith's codex. Envoys, words. Dangerous paths had always been his favored roads. He hired a then guide named Vera, a sinewed woman whose left ear had been bitten away by frostbite years back. Her payment, a promise that, if Tyrion lived, he would send grain ships from the southern ports to Hardhome when winter receded. Whether or not he believed in his own survival, Tyrion bound himself to the vow. Oaths could shape the world. He had seen that much in Dragon's Fire. They climbed glacier switchbacks that split like porcelain underfoot. One evening, camped beneath an overhang where icicles chimed in the breeze, Vera set her jaw and pointed. No further, little lion, she said, using the free folk's fond insult. Beyond her finger lay a chasm, where snowflakes tumbled upward on hidden eddies. That is their realm. She unstrapped a curved horn from her belt, glossy, pale, runes glimmering faintly along its length. Signal if blood spills. The thens will come. We bury our dead with bronze, not ice. He accepted the horn, its rim cold as betrayal. Thank you, he said, meaning more than she could know. With his pack slung and lantern in hand, he stepped forward alone. Under yonder lighted trees, night in the ice mark lay uncannily still, as if motion itself had been exile. Even his lantern's flame slowed, burning backward at times, shrinking in on itself like an inward scream. Tyrion's breath plumed and fell, each exhalation a fragile offering soon ground beneath silence. Then ahead, blue radiance awoke. They emerged not as an army, but as a court. Tall as stories, faceless but for the cerulean wildfire of eyes that fixed on him, was something too knowing to be animal, too empty to be human. Frost gathered in filigree about their armored limbs, armor that seemed woven of moonlight trapped in crystal. One stepped forward, spear carved of shimmering ice. A gust howled across the plateau, swirling snow into spirals that coalesced into a half circle around him. Unvoice. Words. What summons the blood of lions to this numb eternity? The thought appeared inside Tyrion's skull, not born of tongue or sound, but of cold will pressing against warm marrow. He nearly retched from its alien intensity. I am Tyrion of House Lannister, he said aloud, because articulation anchored sanity. I seek audience, I bring terms. Tremor rippled through the gathered phantoms. Whether amusement or inquiry, he could not guess. The lead walker took another step. The debts of summer mean little beneath eternal night. Speak while heartbeats remain. Tyrion steadied himself, the lantern trembling in his fist. You fought for annihilation and fell, yet you survived in pieces bound to frost and memory. I propose alliance, my vengeance for your renewal. His voice skated across the air, thin and brittle as ice. Even wrath felt muted here. There are kingdoms unguarded, thrones unsettled. Let me be your herald. Let me guide your winter, and I will ensure no dragons rise to strike you again. A hush followed, cavernous. Then the vision struck, a surge of images not his own. Cities blanketed in snow so deep. Only spires pierced the crust. Armies frozen mid-charge. Statues of rhyme. The Night King shattering into dust as dragonfire melted the sky. Tyrion staggered, tasted blood on his lip. The lead walker leaned close, the frigid glow of its eyes illuminating the fissures of his scars. What gift proves your oath? His mind erased. What currency purchased ice? He reached to his belt, fingers closing around Maester Keith's codex. But a book meant nothing to creatures beyond language as mortals understood it. Instead, he knelt, knees numbed instantly, and drew a dagger. Pain burst bright as stars as he sliced his palm. Warm red dripped onto crystalline snow, sizzling into steam. Blood, he whispered, mine, and the promise that more shall follow at my command. Each drop vanished into frost as though the land itself drank. The walker straightened. Blood binds, the thought intoned. Very well, little lion. We shall weave cold from your shadow. Sow your vengeance. When 7 cycles of the moon have turned, summon us with the horn of frost and we will walk where you point. Tyrion's breath hitched. And my price. The living who wronged you shall forget warmth forever. Agreement sealed, reality convulsed. The walkers dissolved into 1,000 shards of snow that rose skyward, forming a pallid aurora swirling beneath the stars. Tyrion fell, eyes blurring. In the quiet that followed, memory of their pact already gnawed at his conscience. Yet a grim, satisfied smile etched itself across his frozen lips. He had first sign of the weapon he had sought. The return journey blurred through fever and hallucination. Vera found him collapsed at the ice mark's edge, pupils dilated with frostbite's kiss. She dragged him, somehow, back to camp, poured thawed goat broth down his throat, and stoked a fire that burned bright as molten gold. During long delirious nights, Tyrion murmured half-coherent phrases. Horn, 7 moons, blood for blood. Vera feared madness, but his pulse remained strong. On the 8th day, he awoke clear-eyed, trembling not from cold but anticipation. He studied his frost-scarred palm. A thin line of black traced the wound now. No ordinary scab, but a sliver of darkness beneath his skin, as if winter's needle had stitched a claim. Tyrion flexed his fingers. Pain flickered, but also power. Each heartbeat felt heavier. Each breath weighted with the sense of unseen watchers. He wrapped the hand carefully and recorded the vision in Sansa's journal. Every detail, binding reality to ink. Take this south, he told Vera that evening, pressing the journal into her hands. If I fail, deliver it to the Lady of Winterfell. She'll understand what must be done. No matter me. And if you succeed, then Winter will ride beside me, and we'll not meet again. He tried for levity, but even jokes froze before utterance up here. Vera grunted something between respect and dread, then left under cover of twilight, bound for the wall. Tyrion turned his gaze southward toward the 7 kingdoms that sprawled like spoiled meat awaiting the butcher's blade. His heart no longer thumped in his ears. Instead, a distant rhythmic crunching, the slow grind of glacier on rock, seemed to echo inside his skull. It was the march of inevitability. He started walking. Moon by moon, the seasons swung. But in the north the year never fully cast off its shroud. Tyrion measured time by the throbs of that black vein in his palm. After the first moon, it tingled. After the third, it ached with each deceit. He spoke to lords and petty captains whose aid he quietly gathered. Coins still bought tongues, and Tyrion traded every last jewel plucked from Cersei's abandoned vaults for whispers, maps, safe house. He traveled incognito through White Harbor, Gulltown, Salt Pans, small ports where rumors of new sellsword companies found ready ears. A silver-tongued dwarf hiring men to guard grain convoys in the Riverlands raised little alarm. War had made coaxing blades from scabbards an ordinary commerce. Meanwhile, in the capital, Jon Snow, his reluctant crown weighing heavier by the day, strove to mend a realm split like firewood. Ravens spoke of his quiet burden, the nightly watches at Maegor's Holdfast where he brooded upon the Iron Throne he never won. Tyrion sent none of those ravens. Let Jon think his old hand lost. Let Sansa suspect him perished. Secrecy was the armor Winter demanded. Only once did he doubt. It came on a rain-hammered midnight in Maidenpool, while sheltering beneath the ruins of a stable. Lightning revealed a child curled near the doorway, skeletal and shivering. Tyrion shared his meager fire, broke bread in silence. The girl's eyes, bruised plum dark, regarded him with the blank expectation of the utterly abandoned. Something inside him wrenched. If winter came, her bones would be the first trophies in its hall. For a heartbeat, he envisioned those hollow eyes iced luminous blue. But vengeance once courted devours rivals swiftly, especially mercy. He sent the girl with the stable's lone mare to a sept in the hills, then stepped back onto the road, convincing himself he had balanced the scales of his soul. Yet the imbalance hung heavier with every mercy he attempted. Kindness became mere stones cast into a chasm without bottom. The 7th moon perched thin and curved above the Blackwater rush when Tyrion returned to the charred shell of Keen's Landing. Grass tufts poked through soot-blanketed streets. The citadel's burned-out dome gaped like the eye of some colossal skull. Rebuilding had halted amid quarrels over whose labor should haul which stones. Refugee camps sprawled along the riverbanks, tents stitched from sailcloth and hope. Over them, the dragon pit stood silent. Bones of Drogon's siblings, long since carted away to the maesters. On Egan's high hill, the red keep's scorched towers cut jagged teeth into the sky. Tyrion made his way through a hidden postern gate and up servant passages unused since the conquest. Embers of memory flared, Shay's laughter in the dark, Varys' whispered plots, his father's corpse on the privy. Each recalled ghost tightened the coil of ice around his heart. He allowed none to loosen it. He came at last to the chamber where the throne once stood. In its stead now rose a simple cedar dais supporting a modest carved chair. Jon Snow sat alone, brow furrowed, a parchment limp in his fingers, treaties needing seal, or perhaps confessions unsent. A single candle guttered against drafts through shattered stained glass. The former king in name only looked older than his scars. Tyrion, Jon breathed, rising. Relief warred with suspicion in his dark eyes. We mourned you. I mourn myself nightly, Tyrion replied, bowing. Yet, I persist. What happened? Where did you? North, Tyrion answered, shrugging off his cloak. Snow melted against his doublet in trembling rivulets, to learn whether the world still holds wonders enough to frighten me from despair. Jon studied him, and did it. Yes, Tyrion said, voice a hush. It did. Wow. That night, they took wine by a hearth newly rebuilt from blocks, scorched yet sturdy. Jon spoke of governance, the never-ending negotiation of grain tariffs, harbor fees, and noble rivalries flaring like campfires across a battlefield. Tyrion listened, nodding where politeness demanded. When Jon finally paused, Tyrion set his goblet aside. Have you considered, he asked gently, that the realm may be beyond saving, that perhaps a purge, brutal yet swift, might birth a better age? Jon's eyes hardened. Not through fire or ice. I've seen what purge means in the mouths of rulers. Fire, yes. Ice, we've yet to explore. Tyrion tested the words like daggers balanced on fingertips. Jon rose. Speak plainly. Plainly, vengeance. Tyrion's gaze bored into the flames. For Daenerys, for every child burnt alive, every small folk crushed under stone. You and I bear blame, but that blame was compelled by forces larger than us. Forces that persist. Ambition, greed, prophecy. We prune branches while rot grips the roots. Jon's hand drifted toward the sword at his hip. What do you propose? He asked, though dread already shadowed his tone. I propose we let winter finish what dragons began, and guide its hand toward the rot. Tyrion stood, shorter yet suddenly looming in purpose. Think, Jon. An unstoppable tide that sweeps away tyrants and warlords alike. We shepherd survivors, rebuild anew. Jon took a step backward. You're mad. The walkers are gone. Tyrion held up his bandaged hand. Unwinding the cloth, he revealed the black seam pulsing faintly. Jon recoiled as a breath of frost sighed from the wound, dimming the hearth's glow. Not gone, Tyrion murmured, waiting. Silence pressed thick as night snow. Jon's face sagged with heartbreak. I trusted you, he whispered, and I you. That trust forged my ruin. Tyrion's eyes glistened not with tears, but cold light. Join me. Together we choose who winter spares. Otherwise I proceed alone, and the dice fall will not favor those you love. Jon's answer came not in words, but steel. Longclaw hissed from its scabbard, Valyrian edge catching firelight. Tyrion's shoulders slumped, saddened yet unsurprised. So be it, he murmured. He raised the horn Vera had given him. its rune lines now glowing frost blue and blue. The note that burst forth seemed paradoxically silent. Rather than sound, it carried sensation, a deep subgaural trembling that rattled the marrow. Windows webbed with frost, candles snuffed in unison. Somewhere distant, hounds howled as if struck. Longclaw's tip faltered mid-swing. Joan's gaze darted around the chamber as shadows elongated. Through shattered windows, the night sky roiled with pale luminescence. A rolling wave of argent clouds advancing southward faster than wind. Tyrion met Joan's eyes one final time. Remember, there were no good choices, only the ones we grasped. Then he stepped into the lengthening dark. Outside, the city stirred to chaos before dawn. A scream erupted from Flea Bottom, echoed by a dozen more. Frost raced along cobbles, flowers of ice blossoming on every surface. Ships moored in Blackwater Bay cracked as rigging froze solid, masts snapping like brittle bones. Overhead, the luminous storm advanced, birthing flurries that did not drift, but arrowed downward with purpose. As though each snowflake carried a tiny, malevolent will. Within the keep's courtyard, Jon emerged, sword snow-dusted, to confront his fears made real. Across the flagstones, forms took shape. Tall, glacial, wielding blades of pale night. One figure parted from the ranks and inclined its head. Behind its regal stillness, smaller dead stirred. Men and women who had died in the sack, their skin now traced with icy veins, eyes burning azure. Tyrion stepped between living and dead. "Behold," he called, voice carrying preternaturally across the blizzard's roar, "the justice of winter." He gestured toward the White Walker commander. "Spare those who kneel, slay those who defy. The new world requires obedience, not oaths." Jon advanced, snow crunching under his boots. "Stop this," he pleaded, voice raw. "You'll kill countless innocents." "Innocence," Tyrion echoed, a bitter laugh. "In this realm, innocence is the myth that lulls monsters to sleep. Wake, Jon. Choose purpose rather than remorse." A low horn bellowed across the city walls. Gold cloaks scrambling to muster, but steel rings poorly against ice. The first volleys of arrows shattered into shards before reaching their marks. The archers who loosed them stiffened mid-draw, frost feathering across throat. Jon's grip tightened on Longclaw. Snow flurried thick now, swirling around him, and Tyrion like the spinning pages of an unwritten chronicle. "If I must," he said, resolve sharpening, "I'll kill you to save them." Tyrion's eyes flicked to the approaching walkers. A glance, a thought, blue radiance pulsed. The courtyard's fallen stones heaved aside as skeletal hands clawed free. Warriors who had died defending the Red Keep months prior rose again. Armor rimed, sigils obscured by hoarfrost. They encircled Jon, silent phantoms of his past mercy. Yet mercy finds stubborn purchase. From the shattered palace arch burst Davos Seaworth with a knot of Northmen who had followed Jon south. Men whose loyalty swore not to crowns, but to the man who bore it. Flaming torches in hand, they swung blades, wrapped in linen, doused with lamp oil. Fire met frost in sizzling explosions of steam. Davos shouted, "Fall back to the lower city. Draw them into the alleys." Jon met his squire's eyes, gratitude flickering. Even in despair, strategy survived. Tyrion watched them retreat. Regret tugged his sleeve, fleeting and treacherous. He closed his eyes against it. Then he gestured, and the army of winter advanced, boots crunching bono dust, eyes ablaze with the cold promise of forever. Hours bled into days as storm fronts rolled outward from the capital like ripples from a stone dropped in a pond. By the time ravens reached River Run, entire villages along the Blackwater were encased in glassy tombs. By the time Sansa read Veyra's journal in Winterfell's solar, Valyrian ice had touched the neck, choking the green fork with flows. And Tyrion, sitting upon the shattered stones of the Iron Throne's dais, now little more than a sheet of crystalline frost underfoot, considered maps and casualty reports like a gardener deciding which weeds to pull next. He marked each holdfast loyal to houses that had spurned aids to refugees, each castle that once cheered at Dragonfire over innocence, and dispatched ravens promising clemency if they surrendered tribute and fealty to the Winter Pact. Some obeyed, sending envoys bearing keys, severed heads of former lords, and hostages to bargain a warmth extension. For those he relented, allowing merely crippling cold instead of lethal. Others defied, believing hearth fires and prayers strong bulwarks. White dusk swallowed them whole. Yet vengeance, Tyrion discovered, is a blade without hilt, its edge-cutting hand and victim alike. Each conquered keep throbbed against his conscience, like hammered bone. The list of the dead outpaced even his bitterness. Somewhere beneath the icy weight of memory, the child in the Maidenpool stable still stared with vacant eyes. One dawn, as starless overcast pooled above the city, he stood before the melted remnants of the great Sept. Here, wildfire and dragonfire had once made green suns. Now it lay frozen, shards of trellis glimmering in the gloom. Tyrion traced a broken arch, fingering its brittle surface. Snap. Stone fissured beneath frostbite. The world felt equally brittle. Behind him, the White Walker commander loomed. The act deepens, its presence pressed into his skull. South wind weakens. Soon, all will kneel. Tyrion nodded, though the black seam in his palm burned. I know, he murmured. He knew, too, that once all knelt, winter would not halt without new orders. And what order could suffice when vengeance had eaten itself? Blood yet unpaid, the thought insisted. Whose blood remains? Tyrion asked the empty air. But inside, he heard the answer. His own. The price of final balance. It was Davos who breached the Red Keep days later, guiding a resistance force through forgotten smugglers' tunnels under the city wall. Flames gutting from pitch-soaked barrels drove holes through the unnatural blizzard. Valyrian steel blades, scavenged from noble vaults and reforged overnight, flashed like dawn rays beneath torchlight. Ghost ran among them, a pale shadow leaping, fangs snapping through undead sinew, blue eyes snuffed in sprays of rime. Jon led the charge, face streaked with ash, cloak torn. Up spiraling staircases iced slick, they fought, and everywhere around them, the palace rumbled with a distant keening, as though the very stones wept for their doom. At last they found Tyrion in the throne chamber, gazing into nothingness, horn cradled in his lap. He did not flinch when Ghost growled or when Longclaw's tip touched his chest. End it, Jon rasped, muscles quivering from cold and grief. Call them off. Tyrion looked up, and for an instant Jon saw the friend who once offered japes on the wall, who freed him from chains in Meereen, who believed in broken things. Then the moment passed. I can end it, Tyrion whispered, but my life alone will not suffice. The debt is larger. He lifted his scarred palm. The black seam had widened, branching like dark lightning up his arm. They have bound me, but I can choose the coin we pay. Jon's sword faltered. What coin? My name, my line. Every record of Lannister pride burned from history, so only lessons remain. Tyrion's eyes glimmered, tears or frost, hard to tell. Burn the ledgers, melt the golden lions, strike my deeds from every chronicle save warning. Let legacy be my sacrifice. Jon. And the walkers dismissed. once their purpose dissolves, winter can be bargained. History, never. TYRION held out the horn. But you must sound it after the fires purge my house's memory. 7 days, as they swore, reversed. John's hand closed around the horn, slowly. In its engravings, he saw reflections of bodies frozen, mid-cry, and behind them, the faint silhouette of a man too small to shoulder such cosmic scales. There's another way, he tried. TYRION smiled, the faint, lopsided grin of their earliest days. If there were, we'd have stumbled upon it drunk and laughing years ago. He rose, enshrouded in pale stormlight. Do it, John. Longclaw arced down, not onto Tyrion's flesh, but upon the ancient lion sigil carved into the dais. Sparks flew where Valyrian steel met stone. Davos and Northmen set torches to tapestries, threw crates of ledgers into the blaze. Gold melted, pooling in sluggish rivulets. Ruby eyes of carved lions burst like overripe fruit. Minute by minute, the house that had defined a century of wars smoldered into nameless ash. On the 7th dawn, Jon ascended the tallest parapet. Frost clung to his beard, but the gale had eased. He raised the horn, heart, leaden, and blue. The note carried outward. A sigh of closure. Across the land, storm clouds wavered, spiraled upward, and began to unravel like thread. Snow turned to sleet, sleet to mist. The walkers, far and near, paused, as though listening to a lullaby, then slowly disintegrated. Ice statues thawing from within, until only puddles rimmed with pale dust remained. Down in the courtyard, Tyrion watched, vision blurred. The black branch scar on his arm faded to gray, then to faint silver, never truly gone, but dormant. He sank to his knees among melted gold, tears finally unfrozen. Outside, the first true sunrise in moons cast rose gold over the river, illuminating a city rebuilt by ruin and sacrifice. Yunch, terms. The chroniclers would struggle to record the events that followed. The Frostfall, some named it. Others, the Lament of Lions. They argued dates, casualties, motives, but one fact persisted. The Lannister name vanished from every vaulted record, erased by decree of King Jon the Unwilling, and sealed by Tyrion's own design. In place of sigils, a blank page marked where lions once roared, a silence more deafening than history's loudest triumphs. Tyrion himself became something else. Not lord, not hand, not even maester. He wandered the kingdoms anonymously, planting seeds of recovered grain in wildling villages, teaching letters to children in septries, and telling tales under false names about mistakes so grand they nearly froze the sun itself. Few recognized him, fewer still dared question. And at night, when campfires guttered low, you would lift his scarred palm to the embers. The veins no longer burned, yet in the glow he sometimes saw blue-tinged sparks flicker across his skin. Brief reminders of debts, honored and horrors harnessed. He would close his fist, extinguishing the glow, and whisper to the darkness a single, fervent vow. Never again. But vows, as he had learned, are only the first line in stories others may finish. Far beyond the shivering sea, across tundras no map charted, cold winds gathered fragments of ancient will, piecing together specters from the dust of broken ice. Legends are difficult to kill. They freeze, waiting for warmth to return. And one small man, guiding a mule along a frost-kissed road toward whatever redemption might yet bloom in spring, carried in his pocket an empty horn, its runes inert, empty, but not silent. Pilani, Solita Modshon. A thin plume of camp smoke curled into the pale blue of early spring, drifting above a hollow not far from the ruins of Fair Isle. Tyrion woke beneath a makeshift canvas awning to the smell of oat porridge thick with river mussels, a peasant's breakfast he had come to appreciate for its stubborn warmth. His mule, Maester Hops, snuffled in a patch of sedge beside the embers, tail swishing at midges. Tyrion rubbed sleep from his eyes and took in the morning. Gulls wheeling over the shore, wildflower buds shouldering through frost-stiff grass, the hush of a new world daring its first timid breaths. Each dawn felt like the realm itself, relearning how to inhale after months locked in winter's coffin. Across the ashes of the great houses, small folk dug furrows and sowed seed lent by Sansa's granaries. Patched ships ferried lumber downriver from a resurgent wolfswood. And Kings, Jon and Inkins, landing, Asha Greyjoy, in Pike, Gendry Baratheon in Storm's End, coordinated a fragile council by Raven. Yet beneath the hum of renewal, Tyrion sensed a taut wire humming with unease. The frostfall had not merely killed, it had rearranged memory. Tales of ice warlords stalking the streets still haunted children's sleep, and every cold snap drove mothers to clutch doorways in fear. People coped by believing the terror was gone forever. Tyrion carried the proof otherwise in his saddlebag, a horn that had once called down night itself and might do so again. He ladled porridge into a dented tin bowl and ate while studying the distant Sur. Fair Isle's twin lighthouses, one toppled, one scorched, rose like broken fingers, sentinel to a coast where no Lannister fleet would ever sail again. Removing the lions from history had not erased the scars they left behind. When strangers asked his name, he gave whatever alias fit the moment. Lyn Corbray's lost cousin returned from Bravos, a maester's clerk gathering songs for the archons of Pentos. Sir Grote, hedge knight of no fixed heraldry. Yet sometimes, near sleep, he rehearsed his true name in silence, as though fearing each unspoken day might loosen his tether to the man he had been and the lesson he had sworn to teach the world. Porridge finished, he banked the coals, folded the awning, and packed Hop's panniers. The mule tolerated the bustle with philosophical resignation. They followed an overgrown goat track toward the crest of a ridge, where he knew an abandoned mine shaft offered cool storage. Inside waited sealed jars of sprouting barley he planned to deliver to a widow's farmstead inland. Every handful of grain sown represented a chance at harvest, untainted by old banners. But as the path narrowed between stands of bramble, a rustle of leather corrected his morning's tranquility. Before he could reach for the small crossbow slung behind his bedroll, a crossbow twice the size, one he recognized all too well, swung into view, drawn steady as sunrise. Morning imp. Bronn spat a twig from his lips and grinned down the sight. He emerged from behind Hawthorne, two sellswords flanking him. Or do we call you Sir Ghost Quill these days? I've lost count of your aliases. Tyrion sighed. I thought you'd retire to Dorne and squander your lordship on sun-drenched idleness. I tried, Bronn said. Turns out a man gets bored once the wine sours and the women run out of stories. Besides, gossip travels fast on trade winds. They say you're carting royal grain like a one-mule charity. Didn't seem your style, so I came to see what angle you're playing. Meow, dear. One does not always play angles, Tyrion replied, unshouldering his pack slowly. Sometimes one tries atonement. Bronn's laughter startled a pair of magpies from the hedge. Atonement won't pay my lads. I have nothing you want. Beg to differ. I want answers. Bronn nodded toward the mule. Word is you carry a relic worth whole castles. Something to do with that freak blizzard. Tyrion's pulse quickened. Rumor dresses, truth in gaudy silks. You'll be disappointed. We'll see. Bronn gestured. His men advanced, swords drawn. Tyrion backed up until his heel thumped Hop's foreleg. The mule brayed, unnerved. Kill me and you risk more than you fathom, Tyrion warned. That horn is no trinket. It can fetch the dead. Even better, Bronn said. Dead men don't haggle. Tyrion opened his mouth, but a shrill whistle sliced the air. One sellsword dropped mid-stride, arrow through the neck. The other pivoted, bewildered, only to crumple as a blue steel point sprouted from his eye. Bronn spun, cursing, crossbow swinging toward the ridge. There, atop a slab of limestone, crouched a figure clad in mottled gray leathers, bowstring already knocked for a third arrow. Wind tugged auburn strands from beneath a cowl. "Stay," Ygritte said, voice carrying clear despite distance. "Next bolt splits your skull." Bronn swore again, leveling his shot. Tyrion stepped sideways, seized Hop's yoke, and slapped the mule's flank. Hop surged forward, ramming Bronn's shoulder. The quarrel sailed wide into brush. By the time Bronn recovered, Ygritte vaulted from the ridge, landing cat silent behind him with dagger drawn. Bronn recognized the odds and flung his crossbow aside, hands raised. "Bloody hells," he muttered. "You keep interesting company, imp." Tyrion caught his breath. "We all find redemption where we may." He nodded to Ygritte. She sniffed, lowering her blade but not sheathing it. Bronn eyed Tyrion, then the dead men, assessing cost versus profit. "Fine," he said. "Keep your cursed curio. Just remember you still owe me a castle." "I owe you safety," Tyrion replied. "Walk away now, and the realm might grant you that." Bronn scowled, but pragmatism won. "Until next time, then." He backed down the path, retrieved his crossbow, and vanished into undergrowth. Ygritte watched until silence settled, then turned to Tyrion. "You promised you'd not roam alone," she said, accent still thick despite years south of the wall. "I travel light," Tyrion countered. "This single companion makes me less conspicuous." "The horn is conspicuous enough." Ygritte touched the satchel lashed to his bedroll. "If word spreads further, you'll have more than Bronn sniffing your trail. King Jon himself might come hunting." Tyrion exhaled. "Jon has larger concerns." "Does he?" Ygritte's eyes hardened. "Snowfields north of Last Hearth have not melted. Wildlings speak of lights in the sky, blue spears dancing. They whisper your name." A knot tightened in Tyrion's gut. "Ghost stories persist, but the walkers are gone." "Are they?" She crouched, tracing a design in loam, a spiral of jagged lines. "My people saw these marks after the first fall of winter. They see them again now, carved into saplings where sap should run." Tyrion stared at the crude spiral. Memory stirred, the pattern etched in Child of the Forest Caves, symbol of endless cycles. "Impossible," he whispered. "Maybe, maybe not." Ygritte rose. "I came because the blackbirds carried tidings that the dwarf with the horn walks alone. If the cold ones crawl back, you need allies." He met her gaze. "And you trust me after what I unleashed?" "I trust what I see. I saw you spare babes during the blizzard, guiding mothers to fires. I saw you dig graves for men who tried to kill you. A man who makes new laws out of old guilt might yet right his folly." She paused, "But not alone." Tyrion considered. "Very well. Help me deliver grain to Widow Harlow and her sons. Then we ride north to verify these signs." So it was arranged. A company of 2 and 1 mule, bound again for the land Tyrion had sworn never to see in winter. The irony was not lost on him. They reached the widow's farm by dusk, stacked barley jars in her root cellar, and traded news by hearthlight. She confirmed rumor of uncanny lights, but dismissed them as spirits of those frozen aligning stars before passing on. Still, fear glimmered behind her gratitude. Next morning they crossed the Tumblestone by ferry, sharing deck planks with fishermen who whispered that the river's salmon shoals had sunk into depths unfished in living memory. "Water's too cold," one said, shaking his head. "As if winter clings beneath the current." Tyrion exchanged a look with Ygritte. Each omen, once dismissed, now anchored itself as data in a ledger of dread. 3 days' ride brought them to Maidenpool's outskirts. Snow lingered in shady gullies, though the sun rose stiffly warm. Villagers prepared a spring festival, but erected bonfires double high, as though looming silhouettes in the dark warranted twice the embers. Tyrion purchased fresh supplies in market, ears tuned to gossip. He noted patterns, livestock wandering off at dawn, found later encased in thin frost, metallic clangs echoing at night across open fields, travelers glimpsing pale figures beside roads, only to vanish when confronted. Most locals blamed bandits or strange dreams, but a handful crossed themselves toward the distant north. They lodged in a stable's hayloft. Tyrion couldn't bear inns where Lannister decor still stained beams, and made camp earlier than usual to pore over a crude map. Ygritte lit a stump candle, its glow dancing over parchment. Witness reports form a curve, Tyrion mused, tapping ink dots, starting outside King's Peace garrisons, sweeping eastward, toward the Bight, Ygritte noted, or beyond, to Skagos perhaps. Sparse population, easy hunting ground. Hops brayed below. Tyrion stroked his beard. If the walkers survived in fragments, they might regroup where no wall guards stand, but need a conduit. His eyes drifted to the saddlebag, or a willing caller. Ygritte followed his gaze. You sound as if you doubt that Horn sleeps quietly. I bound them away, Tyrion said. Yet the pact hinged on erasing my legacy. Perhaps the world's memory still shelters echoes of lions. A merchant in Dorne sells miniature gold coins with lion faces. A minstrel in Old Town sings of the dwarf hand who saved King's Landing. These tales break the bargain grain by grain. Stories are stubborn. She tossed a straw at the candle flame. It flared brilliant, then died. So, we gather the storytellers, or craft a new bargain. Tyrion muttered. Ygritte rolled the map. At dawn, we ride to White Harbor. From there, hire a sloop to the Lonely Light. If the Cold Ones stir, the Ironborn Watchers will know. Tyrion nodded wearily. Sleep beckoned, but his mind gnawed the larger puzzle. If fragments of the walkers rose, what shape might they take? The entity he bargained with, call it Frost, will, possessed consciousness diffused among a chorus of ice. Shatter one shard, another endures, and he had given it the blueprint of betrayal and blood, taught it to negotiate. Any new covenant forged by rogue shards could prove catastrophic. He drifted into fitful rest, dreaming of a throne carved from black ice, unoccupied yet whispering his name. They departed before sunrise. Fog clung to veils, moaning among reed beds. At the neck, they encountered crannogmen, outriders wearing reeds and leathers woven with wolf moss. Their leader, a wiry youth named Roose Willem, hailed Tyrion as the broken oath-bearer, but after hearing murmurs of renewed cold, he offered passage through hidden causeways. My father felt the tremor in the earth, Russ said as they poled skiffs through glassy mire. He says winter's ghost walks underwater, turning mud to iron. We set eel traps deeper, but the eels freeze inside alive. At Greywater Watch, they shared smoked frog and moonshine. The castle island drifted slower these days, its timbers creaking under weight of marsh ice that refused to melt. Lady Mira, aged but fierce, greeted Tyrion with chilly civility, then surprised him by presenting 3 ancient dragonglass spears dredged from a bog. Always be ready, she said, pressing them into his hands. The world forgets out of fear. We remember to survive. White Harbor loomed a fortnight later, towers bright against leaden sea. Lord Wyman's grandson, Wylus II, controlled the port with vigilant archers posted on fog-slick ramparts. Tyrion's arrival stirred murmurs along the wharfs. Though Lannister lore had been purged, the guildsmen remembered his face as architect of both terror and salvation. Some bowed, others spat. Ygritte warded them off with her glare. In Lord Wyllis Hall they met an envoy from Pike, Lady Asha's seneschal, Roderick Spark. He had sailed east along the shivering sea to trade whale oil, and claimed his crew sighted ghost flotillas, shipwrecks dredged by ice floes, masts festooned with corpses glazed crystalline, yet walking the deck. Could be exaggeration, Roderick allowed. But my men swear the vessels half-sailed themselves, silent, sliding through mist. Wyllis scoffed until TYRION produced the horn. Silence fell heavy. Candle flames guttered, as if in shared dread. Roderick swallowed. If that trinket calls storms, best you hurl it into the deepest trench. TYRION shook his head. I may need it to command if the ice returns unchecked. Roderick eyed him as though weighing his sanity. Command whom? The dead follow no flag. Perhaps they seek one, TYRION murmured. Even ice needs shape. Wyllis arranged passage on the Wavecat, a nimble cog. Ygritte secured provisions. TYRION procured tarlinseed vials to seal wooden cases for the dragonglass spears. 2 days later, they slipped into gray open sea. Gulls dwindled. Skies thickened with rolling, bruised dark clouds. The captain kept lanterns shuttered, claiming stars vanished too abruptly at these latitudes. On the third night, a hollow boom echoed beneath the hull, as if distant ice calved. Sailors muttered charms. Near dawn, Ygritte shook TYRION awake on deck. She pointed starboard. Faint auroral wisps rippled across low stratus, shimmering blue-white. Just beyond, a silhouette, a caravel adrift, sails tattered yet billowed by unseen wind. As Wavecat closed the gap, they saw fleshless figures lashed to rigging. Jaws agape, eyes empty sockets rimed with frost. Suddenly one corpse head pivoted, fixing them with hollow gaze. Frost smoke puffed from its mouth, though air lay still. Ready oars, the captain barked. But water around the caravel erupted, jagged shards rising like teeth. Instantaneous ice. The ship lurched, hull grazing, forming floes. Wood groaned. TYRION clutched the rail as the caravel's deck tilted. The frost-mired crew jerked upright, joints cracking, and began a grotesque lurch toward the rail, as if sensing fresh life. Ygritte knocked an arrow tipped with dragonglass. She loosed. The bolt thunked into a corpse chest. Frost cracks spiderwebbed outward. Then the body shattered, collapsing into glittering splinters. The remaining undead stilled, as though contemplating. A voice, no, a presence, brushed Tyrion's thoughts with knifing chill. Oathbinder. He staggered, palm scar blazing. Ygritte grabbed his arm. Talk to them, she hissed. He raised shaking hands toward the phantom crew. The pact is unbroken, he cried across the water. Return to rest. Blue aurora flared brighter. Chorus of minds pressed against his. Shards clamoring discordant, lacking unifying will. He sensed hunger for directive, craving structure. He realized fragments of the frost will, unanchored since main consciousness dissolved, now sought any tether. I command you, sleep, Tyrion whispered mentally, pouring intent into the horn's dormant runes. They flickered faint azure. Across the waves, the corpses froze mid-step, then slunk. The caravel shuddered. Ice floes melted into fog. Within breaths, sea lay clear again, the ghost ship adrift, silent. The crew exhaled relief. Tyrion steadied himself. His scar dimmed, proof he still held sway, albeit tenuous. Ygritte watched him with mingled awe and fear. You bargained with gods, she said quietly. I bartered with desperate will, he corrected. Difference. Ask me when worlds stop ending. They pressed onward until the lonely lights, misty crag rose from breakers. Asha's watch fort hugged the cliff, stone keep hung with rust-red kraken banners. Inside the great hall, hearths roared. Spar greeted them, bearing news. Scouting longships had vanished near Skago's lee shore. No wreckage, no survivors, only eerie echoing howls. Tyrion conferred with Ygritte, Roderick, and the watchfort's ironborn master-at-arms, Harl Stormson. They mapped currents and disappearance sites. All signs pointed to the Broken Fang, a sea trench rumored bottomless. Spar proposed a punitive raid with wildfire casks. Harl preferred waiting behind stone. Tyrion offered a third strategy: attempt contact. You'd parley again. Harl spat into a brazier. Invite doom aboard? Tyrion weighed words. If these revenants are but fragments, they need consolidation. Without leadership, they roam aimlessly, still deadly but confused. Offer them purpose, and we might direct them away, even convince them to withdraw north of Hardhome until they or they take your purpose and grow stronger, Ygritte countered. And if we strike, we risk uniting them under rage, he replied. Stormson slammed his cup. Ironborn don't jaw with corpses. Tyrion met his glare. Then Ironborn may drown in corpses. The dead outnumber every raider ever spawned. Night stretched while debate raged. In the end, necessity, lack of wildfire, of manpower, of certainty, bent pride. They outfitted the Wave Cat with grapnels, mounted brazier cages at prow, and rigged a crane to lower a rowboat with Tyrion, Ygritte, and 2 volunteers into the trench's shadow. Before dawn, under a moon veiled by scudding clouds, they reached coordinates marked with charred driftwood crosses. The trench's water gleamed ink black, no waves, as though the sea itself held breath. Tyrion raised the horn. Cold pulsed up his arm. Runes brightened like icy veins. He blew, not the full summoning call, only a muted note akin to distant thunder. Sound sank instead of carrying, swallowed by depths. Moments lengthened. Then the sea surface rippled. Bubbles hissed upward. A hand of translucent ice emerged, grasping nothing, yet lifting a form. A figure coalesced, taller than men, shape gleaming with subaquatic shimmer. It bore no weapon. Its eyes glowed dim. Ygritte drew bow, but held. Tyrion steadied his breath. Hear me, he said. The Oathbinder commands. Your shards remain scattered, your cord unfinished. I offer new covenant. Retreat beyond shivering sea. Claim the empty northern ice as realm, and dwell until time's end. Harm no living being south of Frostfang Peak. The being's head tilted. A matrix of psychic murmurs brushed Tyrion's thoughts, questions, uncertainties. It projected an image, a spiral of stars collapsing into void, symbol of eventual entropy. A reminder, they were patience incarnate. Time favored ice. He countered with another. Fields of barley waving under sun, children's laughter echoing in a marketplace rebuilt. He laced the vision with sensation of warmth. The murmurs quieted, considering novelty. Suddenly a second presence intruded, sharp, malignant. A column of water detonated nearby, revealing another walker arrayed in ragged shards, fissures glowing red, not blue. Ygritte gasped. Fire within ice. The newcomer's aura screamed of fury unbound, shorn from reason, woken by ancient hate. It lashed psychic blades at Tyrion, scores of phantom knives. Pain seared his skull. The first walker raised a frost arm in defense. A shockwave rippled, rocking the rowboat. The 2 colossi clashed above the trench, sending skirls of whipping sleet. Tyrion screamed in Ygritte's arms. She hauled him back as Stormson's crane yanked the boat toward the cog. On deck, sailors loosed dragonglass arrows. Shards flew. The raging red-cord walker strode across water, each step freezing a disc that shattered behind. It hurled a spear of crystallized brine that impaled a mast, exploding shards across crew. Men died instantly, flesh shredding under micro-shrapnel. Tyrion fought unconsciousness, raising the horn again. He blasted the full call, 9-beat sequence. The rune glow surged, white hot. The first walker bowed its head, as if galvanized. It launched lightning fast, driving an arm through the red cord one. A deafening crack split the night. Both figures erupted into flurries of frost that spun into a vortex above the trench, then plunged into blackness. Water smoothed. Silence. Survivors panted, ears ringing. Tyrion collapsed. His palms seemed smoke, flesh blistering. Ygritte knelt, cradling him. "Stay," she whispered. He forced eyes open. "Balance, unsteady," he rasped. Fragments war among them themselves. She gripped his shoulders. "Then we must stop the war, or end them all. End them may be simpler." He coughed, tasting blood. "Need Lightbringer or Dragonfire, neither at hand." Stormson staggered over, one arm hanging limp. "Dragonfire? There's rumor of a Wyrmeg under old Valyria. Sailors swear by molten cliffs." "Valyria." Tyrion managed a laugh that sounded like a sob. "Cross half a world chasing myth to kill myth. But we must," Ygritte said, "or Frost will rebuild stronger, host to rage Shah. You've seen them. Namni, Gamri." Tyrion closed his eyes. In darkness, he sensed distant nodes of cold, the shards. Scattered but pulsing, a constellation of chill hearts awaiting assembly. Among them flickered new anomalies, red-lit like the walker they fought, corrupted by heat. Perhaps wildfire's echo, now bleeding, unpredictable violence. Left unchecked, they would fight until one dominion triumphed, then sweep south with cruelty refined. He opened eyes. "We sail east." Roderick Spar balked. "My queen orders home patrols. Tell Asha the realm's salvation lies beyond Valyria's smokes." Tyrion replied. "If we fail, all islands drown in ice," Pike included. Stormson nodded grimly. "Ironborn go where war called." He clasped Tyrion's uninjured arm. "I'll bring longships. Your cog alone won't cross the smoking sea." Preparations consumed 10 days. Ravens flew to Dragonstone, now seat of King Joan's new Valyrian council, requesting obsidian shipments and a delegation of red priests rumored to study Lord of Light's flames. Tyrion feared Joan's refusal, but the Raven returned, signed by Maester Samwell himself. 2 galleys and crates of dragonglass would meet them at Sunspear. During voyage south along Westeros coast, Tyrion recovered slowly. The scar turned silver again, but throbbed near corrupted shard sightings. Once off Tarth, where a fishing lugger reported ice spires ramming coral reefs, and again near Cape Wrath, where dolphins washed ashore flash frozen. Each episode confirmed rising instability. In Sunspear's warm adobe halls, Princess Arianne, the realm's chief envoy after Doran's neutrality during Frostfall, greeted them with guarded hospitality. She granted a dock for repairs and introduced Aura Laurite scholar Kinvara, a priestess whose red silks shimmered like coals. Kinvara inspected Tyrion's horn and declared it a vessel of cold truth ripe to be tempered by flame. She offered to bless the expedition with fire wards, obsidian amulets etched in Valyrian glyphs, an alloy of dragon glass and copper, each impregnated with a drop of sacrificial blood. Sailors queued, palms slit, feeding braziers where the priestess murmured prayers. Tyrion, whose blood already bound him to winter, hesitated. Kinvara smiled. "Flame welcomes even frost-kissed souls." He placed his hand over the basin. Smoke hissed violet. 300 warriors set sail. Ironborn reavers under Stormson. Dornish spears, led by Arianne's cousin Sir, Daemon Dane, and a mixed crew of Northmen and free folk archers under Ygritte. 2 red priestesses came aboard. Kinvara commanded the flagship's Scourge of Dawn, while young acolyte Varela accompanied Tyrion on Wavecat, citing a vision that the dwarf would stand between night and nothing. Crossing the summer sea was uneventful until they neared the smoking sea. The horizon blackened as volcanic columns belched ash into an ochre sky. Water shimmered green, warm as bathwater. Lightning forked among sulfur clouds. Sailors stuffed rags into nostrils to block acrid fumes. Birds vanished. Only distant roars and hisses punctuated a silence otherwise absolute. Navigating shoals of solidified lava demanded skill. Currents over submerged ridges twisted like serpents. At dawn of the 4th day, Lookout cried alarm. A flotilla of frost-coated wrecks approached, rowed by skeletal mariners whose flesh steamed in the tropical air. Blue and red shards flickered among them. Stormson ordered battle stations. Kinvara commanded priests to ignite wildfire jars atop catapults. Amid the fray, Tyrion stood on Wavecat's forecastle, horn clutched. He felt shards clamoring, a raucous parliament of cold minds struggling for majority. He sensed conflict between original blue will and red corruption, heat within ice breeding chaos. He realized fire elements, inserted by wildfire meltdown during frostfall, infected some shards, turning them vindictive. Flame, ironically, would not simply destroy shards. It might multiply corruption if half-vaporized fragments recoalesced unpredictable. They needed unification, then exile, not further fragmentation. He raised horn, channeling will to broadcast a singular command. Runes blazed radiant, half flame orange, half glacial. Shockwave rippled. Across burning sea, undead rowers paused. Their eyes flashed azure or crimson, then shifted toward a neutral lilac, the hues merging. Bodies collapsed into brittle shells. Motes of frost and ember drifted skyward, swirling into a cyclone above the fleet. The storm condensed into one sphere of shimmering indigo, thrumming with amplitude that rattled planks. Kinvara's voice rose in prayer. Varela clasped Tyrion's sleeve. "Now bind it," she urged. "How?" he gasped. "Shape desire into law." He poured imagery into the horn, far polar wastes untouched by men. Auroras dancing solitary, silence unbroken by screams. A sanctuary for cold to observe eternity without meddling. He sealed the vision with his own name, stripped of history, empty as snow, offering himself as warden but not master. The sphere pulsed, colors dimming, then streaked northward like a comet, vanishing beyond ashes. Decks fell quiet. Corpses disintegrated, leaving armor ringing hollow. Sailors stared skyward, uncertain. Stormson shouted triumph, but Tyrion slumped, horns slipping from numb fingers. Varela caught him. Heat overwhelmed his body. Scar glowed violet, then cooled. He opened eyes. "Did it work?" he whispered. Kinvara approached, smile grim. "For now, you forged a prison of thought. But prisons require guardians. I named myself." Tyrion coughed. "Aizen, whose warden lives mortal years, invites revolt at his death," Kinvara said. "You must plan succession." Tyrion closed eyes. Generational stewardship, a legacy again, the very concept he sacrificed to end Lannister tyranny. Yet perhaps legacy reimagined as vigilance, not dominance. They anchored off Valyria's shattered peninsula. Expedition parties sought rumored dragon nests in half-collapsed spires. Amid basalt rubble near Tyria's ancient aqueduct, they found 3 petrified eggs fused in volcanic glass. Kinvara sensed dormant flame. She insisted one remained for rites. The others rode with Tyrion. Back aboard, letters were drafted. Ravens could not fly smoking sea gales. so carved driftwood capsules would float north, borne by currents. Tyrion wrote to King Jon, Sansa, Samwell. He outlined the Treaty of Cold Exile, the need for an order of watchers tasked with mental vigilance rather than wall defense. Call them the Silent Witnesses, he proposed. Recruit seers, maesters, singers, any who heed dreams. Let no single crown command them. Let knowledge guard against forgetting. Now, he sealed scrolls with wax, impressed not by lion, but by blank circle. Nia Shidani Cia. Months later, Tyrion knelt before a redwood sapling sprouting on a hillside above Winterfell. Snow tinged its leaves where crisp autumn air foretold mild northern winter. Ygritte stood beside him, ghost of a smile softening lines on her face. Jon and Sansa approached along a gravel path. The king wore a simple leather surcoat. No crown adorned his curls. Sansa's cloak shimmered direwolf silver. Behind them strode Brienne, Davos, Maester Samwell, heavy with scrolls. No banners fluttered, only the hush of wind through grass. Tyrion rose, body leaner, eyes older. Jon clasped his forearm. Your letters reached us, he said. We convene lords. They consent. The order will stand independent. Sansa added, Archmaester Ebros drafts charters. The Citadel will train dreamers to record omens. Grain stores fund them. Tyrion exhaled relief. Then the realm has memory. Samwell produced a black iron circlet. Witnesses require no weapon, but symbol, he said. Not crown, not chain. He placed it in Tyrion's palm. Inside, etched Valyrian glyphs read, Those who remember ward those who live. Tyrion closed fingers around the band. I accept stewardship, but not alone. A council of 6. Dwarf, wildling, maester, priest, knight, sailor. We rotate bearers each year. Oaths sworn to truth, not power. Nods all round. Brienne stepped forward, eyes glistening. Truth is chivalry's highest ideal. She touched the circlet, pledge implicit. That night, feasting returned to Winterfell's hall. Modest, no singers extolling battles, only hearth light and clatter of wooden bowls. Tyrion sipped spiced cider, listening to Davos recount onion shortages. To Brienne instruct squires on polished technique. To Jon laugh, truly laugh. While Arya, newly docked from Bravos, taught Bran's son a knife trick. Peace felt fragile but tangible. Late, after candles guttered, Tyrion wandered the godswood alone. Snowflakes drifted, soft as old apologies. He touched the horn hanging on a limb of the weirwood. Kinvara's warded chains bound it. It would remain there, under silent faces, watched by old gods and new Juha. He whispered, Remember. And the trees rustled approval. Years unfolded. The silent witnesses built monastic towers along coasts, their mirrored prisms focusing auroral lights into archives where glass tablets recorded star signals. Children across realms were tested for dream sight. Some joined witnesses, others taught to respect omens. Tales of cold gods became cautionary rather than nightmare. They warned of bargains and the weight of names. Legacy shifted from boast to burden. Tyrion aged into venerable librarian, stooped yet sharp, riding hops between towers, reminding novices that humility outlasts walls. Ygritte led free folk delegations south, forging trade in furs and fermented cloudberry. Brienne tutored shield maidens in honor's fluid forms. Kinvara returned to Volantis, but left scrolls on harmonizing fire and frost. Theories that essence is cycle. One winter solstice, neither mild nor cruel. Tyrion climbed Watcher's Peak, highest of witness towers, alone except for the mule grazing below. Sky shimmered teal and lavender. He spread parchments mapping aurora intensities. The scar in his palm tingled faint. Nothing ominous, only reminder. In swirling lights he glimpsed shapes, a lion, a dragon, a spiral loosening into straight line. Footsteps behind. John, hair streaked silver at temples, wearing plain cloak. Sansa sent letter, he said, offering wine. She wonders when you'll rest. Tyrion smiled. When stories end. Stories never end. John leaned on battlement. They become other stories. Then I suppose I'll be busy perpetually. Tyrion sipped wine. Did I ever tell you of my father's dream for Casterly Rock? Not yet. So he told it, of gold veins and pride's downfall, of lions drowned beneath tides of snow and flame. He spoke until dawn pinked the horizon. Birds stirred. His voice husked, but the scar quieted. He realized the frost will across far polar skies hummed content, imprisoned not by fear, but by story. The realm remembered, and memory fulfilled the pact's letter. John clasped his shoulder. We have time for breakfast? Always. Maester Hops insists on punctual oats. They laughed, descending spiraled stairs as sun-warmed stone. Yet somewhere, beyond witness charts, in the emptiness above Eastwatch seas, an auroral tremor flickered irregular, pulse of a fragment left untamed. Perhaps or merely echo of cosmic joke. It spiraled, curious, tasting edges of prison lattice. It found anchor in a whisper of forgotten name, some minstrel reciting banned verse for coin in brevas, a child scribbling lion doodle unaware. The tremor thrummed, testing. In Watcher archives, crystal quills scratched warnings. Novices hurried to summon elders. A horn, chained to a tree in Winterfell, vibrated ever so faintly, as though inhaling. Tyrion, dozing by a fire with Hop's head on his lap, woke suddenly, heart hammering. He stared into flames, seeing the dance of orange and blue. He rose, took his staff, and despite creaking joints, began the long walk through starlit snow toward the Godswood. Because stories never end. They echo, they teach, they warn, and someone must always be listening. As he walked, the scar warmed, not searing, merely insistent, like a friend nudging a shoulder. He chuckled, shaking his head. All right, old Frost, I'm listening. Ahead, the red leaves of Winterfell's heart tree shifted in windless calm, as though welcoming twilight's first witness to a new chapter yet unwritten. Tyrion's breath frosted in the hush of pre-dawn as he threaded Winterfell's empty courtyards, cane clicking softly on stone. Fresh snow, just a finger's breadth, brightened the flagstones under a waning half-moon. Hops plodded behind, hooves muffled, the mule's ears flicking at invisible things, rustling in the dark. Somewhere, a raven croaked, though no other birds sang, too early, too cold. A watch torch sputtered on the battlements. The sentry, huddled in furs, lifted a hand in silent recognition. Tyrion answered with a nod, then pushed on through the postern arch that opened into the Godswood. Within the ancient enclosure, the air thickened, redolent of pine resin and damp earth. Snowflakes clung to needled boughs, but left the black pool beneath the heart tree glassy and untouched. The weirwood loomed chalk-white, scarlet leaves drooping like weary palms, face carved deep and mournful. Moonlight silvered sap streaks beneath its eyes, so the tree appeared to weep icicles that melted before touching the water. Tyrion halted at the pool's edge and let the hush wash over him until even his pulse felt intrusive. For a time, minutes or centuries, he listened. Wind made no answer. The flat ice scar lined across his palm throbbed at a polite, regular cadence, neither pain nor warmth, merely attention. The horn, slung under his cloak, quivered. Tyrion laid his cane against a root and knelt in snow, allowing the chill to invade his joints. "I am here," he whispered, unsure who deserved the greeting. Old gods, the frost-bound shards, himself. What lesson tonight? A ripple disturbed the pool. Concentric rings spread toward him. On their mirrored surface he glimpsed a flicker. Not reflection, but inner image. The auroral tremor he had sensed, swirling indigo fringed in ember orange, coalescing like a pupil, forming within an eye. It pulsed once, twice, each beat crisp as hammer on steel. The horn vibrated more vigorously. Tyrion's fingers closed about its body. A spark stung. The runes flared, suffusing indigo light through their channels, tinting the snow lavender. Hops snorted and shuffled back, ears pinning. The godswood stirred, branches rattling though wind remained absent. Above, stars winked out, as if a great hand dragged velvet across the sky. A voice assembled, not syllables in air, but felt behind the teeth. Watcher. The timbre differed from the old frost, will, softer, juvenile, curious rather than commanding. Tyrion inhaled, letting cold seize his lungs before exhaling measured calm. "Yes," he answered silently. "I witness what seeks me. Name, shape, place. Incomplete, incomplete, incomplete." The presence flitted, half-formed, like a child stumbling through new speech. Tyrion recognized it, a nascent shard, perhaps newly awakened from red corruption or birthed of residual psychic static. He cupped the horn with both hands. "You are a fragment," he murmured. "You need union, guidance, safety. Need story." The thought insisted. Need meaning. The water stilled. In its sheen a tableau blossomed. A weirwood gleaming under northern lights, a dwarf kneeling, him, a world of villages warmed by hearths. Beyond, farther north, a disharmonious void where shards spun unraveled, hungry. The image trembled, as though requesting something. "You wish me to finish the tale," Tyrion said. "Tale to anchor you, define boundaries." "Yes. Tell." The urgency tightened his scar until pain flickered along his wrist. He swallowed. Each narrative he offered would shape not just the shard, but all tethered to it. Words could chain cosmic wills as surely as runes and iron. He steadied himself and began, scarcely louder than a breath. Once there was a wind that knew only winter. It wandered the world seeking mirrors of itself, but everything warm it touched melted away. Then it met a lamp, small, flickering, whose flame did not flee but danced with the wind, guiding it upward to see the stars glimmering in kinship. Cold lights, distant, unafraid. The wind realized it belonged not to the earth, but to the sky, where cold could shine without killing. So the wind rose, leaving the lamp to warm the ground, and in its place it poured gentle snow, blanketing fields so seeds might sleep and wake stronger come spring. No. Images within the pool shifted accordingly, wind swirling to join aurora high above, lamps glowing in cottages, children laughing as snowflakes melted on tongues. Tyrion finished. "That is your story. Cold that guards rest, not ends it. Are you content?" Silence. Then a ripple of approval, content. The shard's pulse steadied, aligning with the faint starshine that peeked through dissipating clouds. Tyrion exhaled. The horn cooled, runes dimmed. Hops ambled close again, brushing his shoulder with a whiskered muzzle. Tyrion petted the mule absently, feeling exhaustion weigh his limbs. "A bedtime tale for a frostling," he muttered, easing upright. His knees cracked like old hinges, but a smile crept across cracked lips. If fragments could be domesticated by story, perhaps the witness's mission had deeper merit than record-keeping. They might author the myths that sculpted cosmic forces, converting horror into guardian. He reclaimed his cane, But before he turned away, another motion caught his eye. Across the pool, half hidden behind the weirwood's trunk, stood Bran Stark. King Bran, the dreamer, as some styled him now. Only the faintest glimmer of silver wheels betrayed his presence among gnarled roots. His pale eyes, ancient as winter itself, followed Tyrion with unreadable depth. "You felt it too," Tyrion said quietly. Bran inclined his head. "She was lonely," he answered, voice older than his years. "Fragments crave purpose. You gave her one. Only a tale." Tyrion shrugged. "All we are." Bran's gaze drifted skyward where the aurora faintly lingered. "Your guardianship hold, but greater currents stir, a dream of fire over sea." A cracked eggshell glowing, red and green spiraled together. "The world will test its witnesses again." "Naina," Tyrion grimaced. "Must the gods schedule crises like merchants punctuating market days?" Bran's lips curved in gentle mirth. "There are no gods, Tyrion, only powers that obey stories. Write wisely." The young king rolled back into the grove's shadows, leaving barely a crease in the snow. Tyrion sighed, tugged his cloak tighter, and trudged out, Horn silent at his side, the pool behind him reflecting a dawn beginning its slow blush. "Anyani, Shibano, Yesterday." By midday, the courtyard bustled. Blacksmiths hammered iron, distant swords clanged in drill yards, smell of oat bread drifted from the kitchens. Tyrion stepped into the solar where the first witness conclave of winter convened. Sunlight streamed through latticed windows, casting checkerboard patterns across 5 seated figures. Maester Samwell Tarly, spectacles perched precariously. Lady Brienne, polished pauldron gleaming. Kinvara the priestess, red silks vivid. Roose Willem the young Crannog lord, reed tokens adorning his braids. And Grit, the arms folded at the black iron circlet rested on the table's center, waiting its annual bearer exchange. They greeted Tyrion with a mix of relief and curiosity. Sam pushed aside scrolls. "We felt a mild tremor in the crystal array," he said, adjusting lenses. "Nothing like the breaker surge 2 years past, but enough to wake alarms." Tyrion recounted his Godswood encounter, emphasizing the shard's juvenile nature and quick negotiation to peaceful narrative. Kinvara listened, eyes half-lidded, fingers toying with a ruby pendant. "Your parable of wind and lamp draws on duality," she murmured. "Well chosen. Fire warms, cold preserves. Balance. No, wa." Brienne nodded. "Shun. Yet we cannot depend on dwarven bedtime stories forever. Fragments may multiply." She tapped the circlet. "We rotate custodian today. Who bears it?" "Brienne, surely," Roose suggested. "Steel and honor, a steady mix." Kinvara raised delicate brows. "The pattern calls for flame after frost. I propose the priesthood's turn." Samwell cleared throat. "Our charter establishes sequence based on risk index, not element symbolism." He rifled parchment. "Rotation schedule, dwarf, wildling, mester, knight, priest, Crannog." Ygritte rolled her eyes. "Words on paper. We adapt." Tyrion lifted a hand. "Today the burden requires one who can weave swift stories and wield them as shields. Fragments hunger for meaning. We cannot always rely on flame or steel. Therefore I suggest Samwell." Sam gaped. "May, you are scholar and father," Tyrion said. "You value tales, yet no comfort of hearth. If cold seeks narrative, let it meet a master librarian." Brienne smiled approval. Kinvara dipped her head, conceding. Roose thumped the table. "Seconded." Sam swallowed, then reached for the circlet. As its weight settled, he shivered. Runes along the inside glimmered faintly golden, as though signifying new stewardship. Ygritte offered supportive grin. "Don't misfile the world," she quipped. Sam managed a weak laugh. "I'll try." They turned to pressing business. Bran's hint of fire over sea and cracked eggs. Kinvara unfurled a silk map of the Jade Gates. Reports had trickled of a dormant volcano on the Isle of Tarth. Far side, stirring uncanny plumes tinted emerald, and sailors sighting reptilian silhouettes circling high altitudes. Perhaps dragon spawn, she said. The blood of Valyria thaws, along with the cold. Brienne muttered, 7, save us, more dragons. Tyrion recalled the eggs salvaged from Valyria, now nested in Dragonstone's catacombs under Red Priestess watch. We should verify containment wards, he said. Sam made a note. I'll send Raven. Roose mentioned marshlanders glimpsing an enormous shadow crossing moonlit clouds. Wingspan like castle wall. Could be fanciful, but illusions often preceded truths in this era of resurgent myth. Session adjourned for luncheon. Stew of venison and turnip. Strong ale to thaw bones. Tyrion lingered with Kinvara near a brazier. Blazes cast orange across her sharp cheekbones. Your narrative gift grows, she observed, but each tale you craft deepens your bond. Eventually, you may write yourself into their essence permanently. Nevnido, I'm already inked on those pages, he replied, gazing into flames. A witness cannot remain dispassionate. He is quill and chronicle both. Scholar prophet, she mused. Or cautionary footnote. He sipped ale. If dragons rise anew, we must unify flame and frost without repeating dance or doom. Kinvara's eyes shone ember bright. Perhaps union lies in the gray between, cold tempered by warmth, heat tempered by memory. One realm, many seasons. She tilted her head. We may need a school, not just of witnesses but of shapers, story weavers. Tyrion grinned. A university for myth management, delightfully absurd, yet plausible. Begin with children, she said. Teach them songs that cradle extremes. He hummed thoughtfully. A lullaby that keeps dragons napping and winter dreaming. He tapped cane in rhythm, improvised lyreless tune. That evening, Sam donned the witness circlet for the first time beneath starlit ramparts, flanked by Tyrion and Ygritte. He closed his eyes. The circlet's runes warmed, projecting feathery impressions. Faint tugs of distant shards, whispers of old lore. Nothing hostile, merely the hum of cosmic background noise. I feel everything, Sam breathed. Every story in echo. He opened glistening eyes. It's beautiful. Tyrion clasped his shoulder. Do not drown in beauty. Record. Sam nodded solemnly and retreated to the library tower, eager quills awaiting midnight ink. Ygritte hooked an elbow through Tyrion's. Together they ambled along the snowy wall walk. Torches flickered. Below, Wintertown's lights twinkled. Smoke curled from chimneys. Families tucked safe. You once told John a man needs books like a sword needs a whetstone, she said. Now books sharpen winter. Words cut deeper than steel. Tyrion replied, glancing down at a couple strolling between cottages arm in arm. But they can stitch too. She eyed him. Will you ever rest? Perhaps when stories cease begging to be told. He sighed, which is never. Oh. She leaned over, pressed her lips to his temple. Then I'll walk beside you till my own tale ends. He smiled, warmth defying the night. A better companion I cannot invent. Ma'am, Shoni, Sho, Sain. Spring crept over Westeros slowly. Crocuses pierced thaw in the reach. Gulls returned to processed docks at Fair Isle. Bees buzzed restless near Old Town's orchards. Yet 3 omens unsettled the peace. First, A column of sea steam vented skyward off Tarth's southern cape, staining clouds jade. Fishermen pulled nets full of boiled fish, eyes white and ruined. The air shimmered strangely, warping sails and minds alike. Second, a pilgrim caravan crossing the Boneway reported a winged beast, perched on a basalt arch, scales black but edged emerald, eyes glowing ember. Eyes glowing ember. The creature neither attacked nor fled, watching until dawn before launching toward the sunset sea. Third, the Witness Crystal Matrix recorded an unprecedented resonance event. Frequencies of both frost and flame, swirling in harmonic opposition, magnitude thrice that of the breaker surge. These three echoes converged upon one hypothesis: a dragon awakening within a nexus of geothermal and psychic energy, possibly incubated by interplay of wildfire-infused frost shards. If such a worm hatched untended, its soul might bond to raw chaos, becoming avatar of contradiction. Neither ice nor fire, but vortex. TYRION called emergency council. Representatives of Ironborn, Dorn, Reach, North, Vale, and Crown assembled at Watcher's Peak. Watcher's Peak. Bran attended through dream projection, his ravens perched along rafters, eyes white, his voice coursing through calls. The egg cracks. Choice defines hatchling. Wonder. Kinvara proposed a sanctification rite. Encircle the lair with runic pillars of dragon glass and obsidian, each inscribed with balancing lore, songs of warmth, laments of cold. Then allow the creature to hatch a mid-chorus that teaches coexistence. Brienne countered that risk of failure threatened catastrophic destruction. Better to collapse the volcano, entombing the egg. Rus argued for capture and study. Tyrion listened, swirling wine, and thought of tales shaping shards. Not entomb, he said at last. Not capture, we raise it. Shock rippled. Ygritte narrowed eyes. Raise like calf, raise like narrative. He gestured at Sam's circlet. Witnesses become mentors, a dragon schooled at birth to guard, not conquer. Asha Greyjoy's envoy scoffed, but Bran's ravens croaked unified assent. Kinvara smiled. Prophecy loves audacity. Logistics formed. Stormson volunteered longship transport. Dornish splunkers skilled in heat-resistant masonry would carve runic pillars. The Night's Watch, though diminished, pledged archers to guard perimeter. Tyrion himself would craft the hatchling's first legend. Brienne placed a heavy gauntlet on his forearm. If you miswrite this tale, I know, he said softly. Ink spills red if I err. Voyage south aboard Sea Raven proved swifter than previous. Currents favored them. As Stark banners fluttered with mended lionless sigils, Tyrion studied scrolls of Valyrian nursery chants, fire-tongue spells, and northern lullabies about gentle snows. He blended them into a single verse. Warm is the quiet hearth, cold is the quiet hill. Flame and frost in faithful worth guard the realm they fill. Nanunshi. Repeated in High Valyrian, the couplet wove alliterative patterns meant to soothe reptilian cocklee, according to Kinvara. Tyrion practiced until meter flowed like heartbeat, neither martial nor mournful. They reached Tarth's jade-tinged plume near dusk. The volcano, Mount Ceaseless, rose squat, crater glowing eerie turquoise. Surrounding jungle steamed, foliage wilting under unnatural heat. Pillar teams disembarked, dragging sleds of carved obsidian. Kinvara and Varela traced runes on each shaft with molten chalk, their prayers singing sparks. Tyrion and Sam supervised arch placement, orienting cardinal points to align with auroral fields. Ran, astride ravens overhead, guided adjustments. When dawn broke, 10 pillars ringed the crater, connected by iron chains etched in glyphs. Chorus assembled at noon. Witnesses, priests, wildling chanters, maester choir. They stood beyond pillars, forming outer circle. TYRION at northmost, Kinvara south, Sam east, Brienne west. Hops grazed nervously behind crates. Crater trembled. A thunderous crack split stone. Geysers of turquoise flame jetted skyward, merging with clouds in boiling swirls. Heat pushed outward, runic pillars absorbed, runes blazing teal. TYRION raised his voice first, chanting lullaby lines. Others followed in overlapping harmonies, deep bass of iron-born shanties, high keening of Dornish pipes, steady drum of Crannog reeds. Sound wove tapestry around the volcano, each thread a promise, warmth and rest, vigilance and dream. From the fissure, a snout emerged, obsidian black scales shot with opalescent veins, molten cracks pulsing luminous mint. Eyes, one glacial sapphire, one molten amber, blinked newborn wonder. The creature unfurled wings streaked pale aqua at the membranes, edges scintillating with frost crystals that sublimed into steam. A hush fell, even crashing surf muted. The hatchling, larger already than Drogon at birth, penned gaze across circles. Steam coiled from nostrils, but roar did not come. TYRION stepped forward, slipstream of heat ruffling hair. He extended his right hand, palm scar visible, horn strapped at belt, symbolic but unsounded. In High Valyrian, he recited, Dracaris udruta, balsi yelmi, tulin, tudishoma molesta walundishten, premia idruta, zoltis seshorgasa, learn. Dragon awakened, valor and calm. Heart awakened, balance and strength. The hatchling head tilted. Amber blue eyes flared chromatic, swirling until colors merged verdigris. A rumble vibrated through the ground, not threat but response. TYRION continued the lullaby in commenta. When he spoke, guard the realm. The dragon folded wings, settled on haunches, and exhaled plume of vapor that crystallized midair into snow, which melted before touching earth, leaving dew-wet grass. Kinvara lowered her staff, smiling. Sam released breath he'd been clutching. Ygritte loosed bowstring tension. But equilibrium is fleeting. A tremor shook the beach cliffs. Obsidian shards dislodged, skittering downslope. From jungle shadows charged a band of sellswords, tattered banners of Golden Company survivors, exiles scavenging chaos. They bore wildfire bombs, scavenged from Cersei's caches, green glass glinting. For gold and glory, they cried, intent on claiming dragon and hostages. Archers loosed. First rank fell, but others hurled bombs. One smashed near a pillar, coating runes with searing green blaze. Glyphs flickered chaotically. The dragon shrieked. First note raw, second building into concussive roar. Snow and steam collided overhead, birthing sudden hail that pelted attackers. Brienne led shield wall intercept. Kinvara invoked fire words. Stormson's Ironborn charged, axes singing. Still, a stray bomb arced toward TYRION. He shoved Hops aside, mule brayed indignantly, then sprinted toward falling sphere. No time to dodge. He drew the horn, blew a single piercing note. The bomb froze midair inside sheath of blue ice, clanked harmlessly to ground, contents solidified. Fragment shards, within horn, resonated with hatchling. The dragon's eyes met Tyrion's, understanding spark. It flapped once, generating cyclone that swept sellswords off cliffs into surf. Silence reclaimed jungle. Wildfire residue hissed, but pillars resumed steady glow. Tyrion's chest heaved, horns smoked. Kinvara approached, kneeling beside the frozen bomb. Ice-tempered wildfire, she marveled. Brienne, wiped blade, luck more than lore. Tyrion looked to Dragon. Not luck, choice. He stepped closer. You choose guardianship. The dragon dipped its head. In the act, frost condensed along Tyrion's scar, lines radiating across his hand into snowflake pattern, painless but cold. He felt new bond form, not domination, but partnership sealed by tale and deed. Sam hobbled over, notes fluttering. What shall we call her? Tyrion gazed into those dual-color eyes, saw swirling aurora, winter stars, hearth fire. Verilis, he said, Valyrian for Union of Dawn. Ludiaun Shirtidodzia. News of Verilis spread as spring ripened. Some maesters feared second dance. Others hailed omen of reconciliation. Tyrion worked tirelessly at Dragonstone, establishing rookery perch, codifying lessons, morning flights over sea to temper instincts, evening hearth sessions where priests and skalds recited stories extolling harmony. Children from across kingdoms visited, singing lullaby in myriad dialects. Verilis responded with coos that spattered soft sleet sparkles, much to their delight. Meanwhile, witness towers monitored shod resonance. Reading stabilized. Fragments synchronized around Verilis's psychic gravity, adopting hatchlings' balanced template. Where frost once haunted tundra, now light twinkled gentler. Where wildfire corruption seeped, embers cool. Tyrion recorded findings in illuminated scrolls, gilding margins with intertwined snowflakes and flames. Yet he knew peace required vigilance. He convened with Sam and Kinvara to revise witness charter, include dragon tutelage protocols, ensuring future hybrids learn coexistence. One starry night, Tyrion climbed Dragonmont's slope. Verilis lay curled on basalt shelf, tail encircling glowing belly. He settled at her side, back against a scale warm on one side, cool on the other. Quite the tale we write, he murmured. Wind lamp, now dawn dragon. She chuffed, steam frosting his beard. Tyrion gazed at sky where a faint spiral of purple aurora shimmered, benign. He closed eyes, allowing memories. Lannister halls echoing hubris, White Walker siege, frost-kissed negotiations, shards warring, songs weaving peace. He felt his life a bridge, improbable, fragile, yet traversed by countless souls stepping from nightmare to possibility. He slept. Years later, on the anniversary of Frostfall's end, witnesses gathered at New Citadel Annex in Old Town. A great dome of stained crystal, depicting fire and snow swirling about Verilis in protective ring. Sam, now arch-witness, presided. Tyrion, hair gone white gold, attended as honorary founder. Ygritte, Kinvara, Brienne, Stormson, and Russ formed inner circle. Beyond, novices thronged, young maesters, wildling scribes, Dothraki Volish carrying reed tablets. Sam read the Oath of Balance. I will remember extremes and weave them, that none may sunder realms again. Choir echoed. Tyrion stepped forward with Verilis perched behind open dome, wings blocking midday sun. He addressed crowd. Once, I stood before cold gods and bargained doom for vengeance. I nearly drowned the world. I learned hearts freeze if fed hatred, empires burn if stoked pride. But blend heat with chill, and you temper steel. Stories hold that shimmer. You, witnesses, are smiths of story. Write wisely. Navlun. Thunderous applause rolled. Verilis trumpeted, showering glitter frost that dissolved into warm mist. Cheers redoubled. After ceremony, Tyrion lingered in garden overlooking Honeywell. Sam joined, handing goblet. To improbable ends, Sam toasted. Tyrion clinked. and improbable beginnings. They sipped. Do you regret the pact? Sam asked gently. Tyrion considered. Regret shapes vigilance. Without it, we grow careless. I carry the scar, yes, but scar reminds fingers where blade once cut. They grip quill steadier. Mama did. Sam smiled. Sensible. Laughter drifted from colonnade where children played tag around Brienne's towering form. Kinvara chatted with Grand Maester Orwyle, debating flame economics. Pops, sporting wreath of meadow flowers courtesy of giggling novices, munched contentedly. Tyrion exhaled. Sunset painted sky mauve. An ember. He turned to Sam. Shall we write tomorrow's lesson? Start with a wind that rose to meet the stars. Sam nodded, eyes gleaming, and a lamp that danced. They walked back into Dome as twilight unfurled, stories fluttering like unlit candles, waiting each pair of witness hands to strike spark. Above, Veralis sailed across darkening firmament, tail etching lazy infinity, amber and sapphire eyes marking endless watch. Dragon of dawn guarding cycle unbroken, product of union, promise of balance. And somewhere far beyond northern lights, a quiet wind sighed content, knowing its tale had found voice, its loneliness eased by words carved into the hearts of men and dragons that would remember. 'Cause stories, after all, are worlds, and in the telling, even winter can learn to sing of spring.